Okay, my friends, as you know, Roger, made some crazy statements about Venus being born from the great red spot on Jupiter. Well, let's dig a little deeper into this. Okay, I just want to warn you right up front, giving birth, which is literally what Venus was, a birth from Jupiter, involves female body parts, and they will be displayed in extremely graphic detail. Just warning you, it's up to you. You see how they try to destroy him there? Everywhere they did this. Get ready, here comes the female body parts, because that's exactly what happened with Venus. Boom. This is the size of Venus right here, and that is the red spot. And that, my friends, is one of these right here. Look at this carefully. I'll show you something. That, you see that little tag right there? And of course, the rest is pretty obvious. Now, let's take a look at what Venus is, the red spot. You see that little tag right there? It's the same tag. And you see this? It is a vagina. I'm sorry, that's just what women have, and that's what Venus had to give birth to Venus. I mean, that's what Jupiter had to give birth to Venus. Now, it literally even has the hairline. You see this? You see this? Look at this carefully. You see that all the way around? Same on the other side. You see that? And that's that little latch that tags and locks that body part into your body. We all, everybody has these tags that tag your body together, and there it is right there. All right, and the rest is pretty obvious. I mean, the clitoris, or clitoris, however you want to pronounce it, is pretty obvious. All right, and this is the vaginal canal. And the winds circle around it because it is a mound. It's called the Venus Mons, which is exactly what a woman has, is a Venus Mons, which is the bump of the vagina. And that bump is causing this wind pattern. This is not a storm. It's a wind pattern around a bump. All right, just think of it this way. This is the Venus Mons, and it is a mound. It's a bump sticking out of here. It's the same thing a woman has. She has a Venus Mons that is a bump on the vagina area there. Now, the planet is coming this way with its atmosphere attached to it. And it's the atmosphere, which is the clouds, bump into this bump. All right, so they are trailing and spinning off as they go around it. It's not that this thing's spinning and making a storm. No, it's these clouds. You see it? They're rolling over the top of the bump or around the edge of the bump because that's what's making this pattern here, the swirls. It's not that this thing is a storm. No, not at all. It's that as it turns, it swirls as it bumps up against the mound. It's just the way it works. It's a vortex pattern. All right, I'm going to make this as simple as I can possibly make it. Let's just assume these are nothing but clouds. These are not disturbed. These are disturbed. This is a bump. Now, why would this get disturbed? This bump is going forward through these clouds, and as it hits these, they're going to roll off it just like these have rolled off. So this bump is going to go that way into these clouds. The clouds are going to roll off. If it's a bump, that's what's going to happen. And they are. You can see the pattern is happening. So the planet is going this direction. It's rotating around like this. That's the right-hand rule. All right. Now, the bump is going against these clouds, so they spin this way. The bump is the Venus Mons. It is the bump of the vagina. It literally is the bump of the vagina, and it is causing this swirling effect as it surrounds that bump. And the bump has changed dramatically not long ago. Okay, so don't forget, that's my claim. It has all the architecture, and even the, like I say, look at this. These look like the little hairlines. It has the tab that locks. See that tab right there? The different colored tab? That is a lock that locks that body part into the lower part of the body. I'm not making this stuff up. There it is right there. You see a different color? And here's all the... I mean, it's all there. You see, there is no difference that I can tell. And it is a mound. This is a mound. It's called the Venus Mons. And they say it is an erogenous zone. I wouldn't know personally. Anyway, this is, like I told you, there's going to be a little anatomy here, and that is not a little anatomy. That's a pretty good size anatomical feature, considering that the Earth could come right out of there. Now, what else did Velikovsky claim? He claimed that Venus was born from Jupiter. I'm going to go with a yes. And by the way, give me some thumbs up. Everybody got to give me a thumbs up, because we got to get this stuff known. It'll put me in the algorithm of not being insane. Now you see this? This just happened not too long ago, 2019. It puffed way up and started sloughing off blood. You see that? That's slough off of blood. They said big scabs were peeling off, and I'm telling you, that looks to me like it's ready to give birth. And this just was only a few years ago. You think what you think. They thought it was going to just wash away and go away, but no, it was the blood coming out and peeling off, and they said there was big scabs of red material coming off of there, which is blood. I mean, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's huge amounts of flow of blood coming out of there. And I believe Velikovsky's accounts of all of these things that were happening on Earth during the time of the Exodus were a result of this. Well, a result of Venus being born and having that red blood follow with the umbilical cord and the placenta. The umbilical cord, very, very tough stones like crazy. And then after that, you would have a whole batch of fluffy food, which was the manna floating around in space for a long time, because it would have been a big package of fluffy food. And that's the only thing I can think of. All of these things sort of fit together. All right, the red blood fell all over the world. And they said the lakes were contaminated, there was blood everywhere. And then after that was the stones, which would have been the umbilical cord all fracturing up, coming through the atmosphere, and then the placenta creating the milk and honey. Now, Carl Sagan attacked my hero, Emmanuel Velikovsky. I'm sure I've told you that 100 times, and you're going to hear another 100. One of his complaints was, well, Velikovsky said that was why the Earth stood still, which is ridiculous, because how would it speed back up again? Well, first of all, and I'm not kidding you, the physicists and astrophysicists don't even realize we are scrubbing through the particles in space, and the particles in space are dense. They are not a vacuum by any means whatsoever. And because we are scrubbing our atmosphere, which is basically glued to our Earth, so it rotates with our Earth, our atmosphere out here. It's called the ionosphere. and it is loaded with particles that scrub all the other particles out here, and this is hotter than hell. And the same thing the sun. The sun on its surface is only 10,000 degrees. Out here it's millions. No explanation for that whatsoever. They have none. Why would it get to be 1,000,000 out here and only 10,000 down here? They just have no clue. And why is it 100 on the Earth and 2,000 out here at the end of the zone, and then in between it goes down to -80? What is that all about? Look at this. Let me show you. And they have no clue that this is what's causing global warming. Now, secondarily, this is what will cause the Earth to speed back up again. It's scrub as it's spinning through space, being dragged by the arm of the Milky Way and the Sun, as I shall show you now. Okay, this is a solar eclipse. That means the moon is shading the direct light from the sun, so we're not blinded by the light. We can see the light that's given off. And this is all particles, and there is just a ton of particles. You see these red spots? What that is extreme concussion, creating big magnetic fields and big magnetic waves. And what it is the sun is spinning in this direction. And the reason I can tell that is because these are the concussive zones, creating their own fields and extreme concussion. This is the side that's trailing. So it's spinning into this as it's going that direction, spinning this way. Here's your poles, and this is just trailing off. So it's spinning in and trailing off. That's what's happening with the sun. These are nothing but particles just spewing out into space. We have to go through that. Our sun and our moon have to plow through all this stuff because we're being dragged behind it. And in addition to that, we're being dragged through the Milky Way, and that has a whole bunch of garbage in it too. So every single thing there is being banged and shoved against by all kinds of particles in space. There is no vacuum in space whatsoever. So that means the Hubble and all the rest of that stuff doesn't work right, because they're judging the continuous, non-varying speed of light at 186,000 miles a second, and then they multiply the number of seconds into a year, and that's a light year. And they say, oh, it's 650 million light years away. It's just insanity. Absolutely crazy. Because this is slowing down. And they say, oh no, the redshift, the reason the light is slowing down is because everything's going away. It's just astounding that they can have this mindset and never ever even consider to look at what is right in front of their faces. We know everything is saturated. There is no vacuum in space. Everything is predicated on a vacuum. There's no question whatsoever. It's not a vacuum. Or you saw all the stuff given off by the sun. We have to go flying through that, and not only that, we're being ripped through the arm of the Milky Way through all kinds of debris. So we're scrubbing against that, and as it does, it forces the planets to spin. That's what causes them all to spin on their axis. So don't forget, all that stuff is coming off the sun. In addition, we're being scrubbed through the arm of the Milky Way, and it's just all kinds of stuff in here. We're somewhere on one of these arms, and the arms are being spun like this around a circle, crushing the center core, which is forcing all the dark matter to the center. Literally, all the white matter is surrounding it, and the dark matter gets bigger and bigger, and the white matter gets bigger and bigger. That's how this works. And it's just coming back just like a wrench. But we're coming through here. Now, if we're coming through a dense spot, we're in trouble. If we're coming through a blank spot, well, maybe that won't be so impactful. But right now, we're getting impacted very, very hard. And there's only two possibilities. One is that our atmosphere here is puffing up like crazy, which it is. Every time we burn something, if you turn a solid into a gas, it increases exponential size. Absolutely unbelievable. So the atmosphere is doing like this because we're burning a lot of stuff. So the bigger it gets, the scrubber it does, the more scrub it has. So we need to stop combusting things and breaking things down into gases. That's the key. Carbon, yeah, carbon is part of carbon dioxide, so it's a serious gas. But it's not carbon, it's the gas. Now, that's number one. It could be just getting too big and going, scrubbing harder and harder. The harder it scrubs, the more hot it's going to get. And the hotter it gets out there, the more heat comes down. It's not trying to get away. It's being forced in. It's being forced in. It can't get away. That's where the ionosphere is. I'll show you the temperatures in a second. But either it's getting bigger and scrubbing harder, or we're hitting more dense space and it's just impacting harder. That's the only two things I can see. And we know that basically, think about it this way, all the turbulence, all the hurricanes, the tornadoes, the floods, the weather storms, the hurricanes, the hail, huge hail, and hail is a product of the cold zone, which is just below the hot zone. You see this? This is the layer right here of the ionosphere, 1,500 degrees. 1,500 degrees. That's 1,500 degrees. Just below it is minus 80 degrees. Why? Why so hot? Why so cold? It's always push and shove. There's always that separation, completely separate, the hot from the cold, the black from the white. The black is cold. The white is hot. And these are the particles coming in, interacting with our particles that are surrounding our globe as it spins. They're smacking into it, scrubbing, creating 1,500 degrees. But right underneath, there's no scrub. It's minus 80. This is, in this area, we're getting this condensation, and then you start to have water. The light itself, and I'm going to tell you, and this is a fact, the light itself is water that hasn't condensed yet. That's a fact. These particles of light are nothing more than little bitty pieces that when they crush together, they will end up forming water. That's where the water comes from. All right, and then, and when you have these extreme weather events, you're getting crushed. I believe it's getting crushed so hard, so quick all of a sudden that it forms hail. And it could, because hail is just colder and colder. And the crusher you get, the hotter it'll get here, the colder it'll get here. That's my belief, and I'm pretty sure I'm right. Okay, let's see what this place has to say. This is called Sky and Telescope, the Essential Guide to Astronomy, Velikovsky's Venus. This goes back to 2018, March. A controversial 1950 book declared that our neighbor world was spawned by Jupiter 3,500 years ago and nearly struck Earth twice. And this is Emmanuel Velikovsky, who did the research everywhere on the planet. They had the same story. Okay, rather than accepting just the nonsense they were given, he went to the texts, to the carvings, to the papyruses, to all of the glyphs, and he saw what they recorded everywhere on Earth. And in his scheme, Venus took the form of a huge rogue comet ejected by Jupiter not long before 1500 BC. That's 3,500 years ago, approximately. It hurled sunward, sideswiping Earth twice and colliding with Mars before settling into the almost perfectly circular orbit it now occupies. All right? It sideswiped Earth twice. All right? It's actually impacted with Mars. I can verify and validate those two things pretty well. All right, it's the basis for all this astounding historical recent chaos wasn't a detailed computation of orbital motion, but rather Velikovsky's unwavering belief that the Old Testament narratives of cosmology, myths drawn from China, Central America, India, Assyria, and elsewhere. He went everywhere in the entire world, and he got the real accounts of these events. Now they're laughing at him and saying, unwavering belief in all these nonsensical people. All right, I have scientific evidence to present. They're talking about he was pilloried almost universally by professional astronomers. And I mean, they just destroyed him. Velikovsky remained a frequent acquaintance of Einstein. They were very good friends. More than a decade later, he gained a modicum of support because of Princeton physicist Bargmann and Columbia astronomer Motz, whose letters to Science pointed out that Velikovsky successfully predicted all these things that nobody else predicted. Radio energy, and it was very hot and so forth. Still, one has to wonder why listen to this, because they wanted to keep him destroyed today. Still, one has to wonder why the outlandish premises of world and collision got so much attraction in the first place. Because here it was in listen to this. Worlds and Collision became phenomenally popular in the summer of 1950 among the New York literary. Advance articles about the forthcoming book in Harper's Reader's Digest and elsewhere whetted the public's appetite. Once in print, the book rocketed to the top of the New York Times bestseller list, remained top 10 pick for 5 months, but he was so pilloried that they made him take it off the bookshelves. The book publisher was attacked by academia, and they said, we'll never buy another book from you if you don't take that book down. And they did. They said, no, we're not going to publish it anymore. Now listen to this. He came out with a whole bunch of predictions, and I think it was like 60 of them. I mean, I'm talking a ton of predictions that actually came true. Now, the Velikovsky affair raises what is perhaps the most disturbing question about the public impact of science. How is a layman to judge rival claims of supposed experts? He's attacking Velikovsky, who did the expert research. Any person with a gift for words can spin a persuasive argument about any subject not in the domain of a reader's personal expertise. Like these guys are, oh, I'm an expert, so I can make all these dictates. I don't care about the evidence. That's what these people do. That's what an academic does. There are dictators, and if you don't listen to them, they will fail you, and they'll keep your money. There is no recourse to these people, and I'm telling you, some of them are not very nice people. An advocate turned critic notes more pointedly, the less one knows about science, the more plausible Velikovsky's scenarios appear. They just continue to destroy him, and he would never be known in history if I hadn't written that book. And people just were going to drop him off the page. And you go ask your professor now about Velikovsky. What do you think about Velikovsky? They probably say, who's he? I'm not kidding you. You see this? I'm not saying it's freaky as hell. This is the impact on Mars. It impacted here and scraped all the way across Mars. This is wider than the United States, and Mars is smaller than the Earth. So this is a very, very long and serious gouge, and that's exactly what Velikovsky said. And Mars was the god of war. Now, Jupiter is Zeus. He was the top god, and he sent out Athena, which is Venus, which was his avenger, that came out and went after the Earth a couple of times and destroyed Mars. I mean, totally destroyed it. And I've seen all of the biology on Mars. It's exactly the same biology as is on Earth. Giant creatures, same thing. Again, nobody looks. The Mars crab, Mars Morse code, Mars blueberries, all biology. Don't forget, Jupiter gave birth to Venus. And by the way, you want to see something about Carl Sagan? I got to tell you something, my friends. I think Carl Sagan might have had a little fantasy thing going on. You see that? That's the vagina, which is a great red spot. You see it? Look at what Carl made for himself. He made a little toy. Look. Carl, there's real ones. You don't have to do that.